Just gonna leave it on screen, and then you guys can point out if you saw the tier list that we almost did today. What's going on, YouTube? So I was searching for some more tier lists, and I thought to myself, let's see what this one has. It was a content tier list, and then I opened it, and as you can see, it's beautiful. It's everything I've ever wanted in a tier list. So today we're going to go over all of the different types of content in ESO, and we're actually going to put them on a tier list. And why are we doing it like this? So what are the rules? This is everyone should do this at some point in their career. You know, you must do it. You should do it. You can do it if you enjoy it. In boredom, I would suggest doing it. Something to do, maybe a little bit of profit in it, not necessarily fun. And just overall, you can avoid doing this. There's no benefit to doing it. So we are going to rank all of the different types of content in ESO on this tier list. And I'm just overall excited to do this with you because this is very unique. And I love it. And the next tier list will probably be the DLC dungeons because that's what I was looking for, or the DLC chapters. But we're going to be looking at this from a fresh perspective. If you were talking to your friend who was brand new to ESO and he said, I want to farm some delves, I find them very fun. You know, should you do that? Can you do it? Would you only do it in boredom? Must you do it? That's what we're going to be scaling today. Before we jump into this video, a quick word from our video sponsor. The video was sponsored by Dungeon Hunter 6, the latest addition to the Dungeon Hunter franchise. After several releases starting in 2009, we welcome the highly anticipated addition to this renowned series, and I can assure you that the wait is truly rewarding. Dungeon Hunter 6 is a free-to-play mobile ARPG with a unique hero collector feature and a stunning fantasy style. The gameplay features fast-paced hack-and-slash combat styles with various builds and skills to utilize as you fight big bosses. And with it being absolutely free to play, download it with my link in the description below or use my QR code in the top corner to get started today. Let's start off by talking about the coolest mechanic in the game. In Dungeon Hunter 6, killing the boss is simply not the end. For every boss you defeat, the game also allows you to not just loot them, but also you can ride, fly them, and also summon up to 3 of them onto battlefields and make them members of your squad. You can take them anywhere. You can even shapeshift into them to harness the powers that they used against you. And to go along with that, you've got better graphics optimized for smoother mobile gameplay. Dungeon Hunter 6 takes its 3D graphic performance to the next level with its truly stunning skill animations optimized for multicasting, ensuring that gonna look pretty good on your mobile device. And some other amazing features: you can play with a guildmate and battle in real-time guild wars, grind with a variety of skill tree options to test builds, and you can trade items via the auction system in the game. So download the game for free today and use my link in the description below. Not only that, if you're viewing on PC, you can scan the QR code if you're viewing it on PC or even if you're on mobile. But what are you going to get if you download using my link or my QR code? And you are going to get a $50 value bundle, which is going to give you 10 free summons, an SSR Lieutenant, which is a demonic wolf, and an accessory pack just for using my link in the description below. And not only that, starting October 13th, you can use your game account to enter for a launch lucky spin event for a free chance to win great prizes such as an iPhone 15 Pro Max, a PlayStation 5, an Apple Watch, and more. And check out the description for more details, and I'll catch you guys in the game. And we start off with something very interesting, and that's arena achievements. Arena achievements don't actually necessarily net you anything that's relatively good. Now, farming arenas is actually on here a bit later, so that's not what we're going to be scaling this on. So this is just, should you go out, kind of complete those achievements and things that are tied to specific arenas. There's decent titles and things that are attached to them. A lot of people will give a lot of credence to those, you know, for example, who've done the no death hard mode speed run of Vatestrand. It's a very popular achievement to get. You can also get that same one too, or, you know, similar circumstances for Maelstrom. But overall, you generally farm arenas more so for the weapons, and then you don't farm them again because they're long. Next up, we have base game dungeon achievements, which is actually pretty much the way that, you know, you used to be able to get your Undaunted skill up. I would say overall it's something that you can do. There's decent titles, personalities, skins that are really tied up into dungeon achievements. I think overall it's something that's worth doing. I think it's really fun to do. It also starts to challenge you, to really get good at different mechanics. It starts challenging you to, practice in different types of things and content. So overall, base game dungeon achievements is something that I think you can do, and something that I might suggest that you should do, but not enough to the point where it's going to bump it up a tier. This next one is going to be pretty controversial, but I think everyone should do Battlegrounds. I think everyone should do it. It's a hot take, I know, but Battlegrounds has an ELO system, which is basically a matchmaking system. It helps put you against people who are also new to utilizing those characters. It's a character-based ELO system. I think overall it's really good. It's a good transmute method. It's a good way to practice PvP. It's just overall, in my opinion, very enjoyable, and I highly suggest that everyone should try and should farm Battlegrounds in some capacity. Next up, we have crafting, which is going to go into the must-do. There's going to be some people who think, shouldn't it just be something you should do? It's something that you must do. And it's not something that you need to level up every skill line for, but what you need to do, what you must do is you must get all of the traits, the good ones, for pieces of armor. Because if you want to be able to transmute armor pieces, you have to have it learned through its research. So it's essential that you get that research done. That's why it's something that you must do on any character, for your first actual character that you have that you're going to utilize crafting on. So obviously you can have one crafter, you don't need to have multiple, but you want to at least make sure that you have those traits. And if you're new to ESO and you need a lot of traits right away, what you can do is you can research one different trait on each character, because as you continue to do research, it's going to take longer and longer. So always start off with your good traits, and if you're desperate for a trait, you can always research it on your main crafting character. But if you want it sooner, you could always research it on some other character as well, and then you'll get it within a few hours as opposed to probably a few days on your new one. Also, it just helps doing your daily writs, and that's one of the best things to do. Next up, we have Crag Trials, and I don't know why they have achievements with this as well, but they do have Veteran Crag Trials as its own separate thing, but not normal Crag Trials. So we're going to kind of grade this as doing just normal Crag Trials, and I think this is something that you should do. Why? Because a lot of people are intimidated like crazily by the concept of doing Crag Trials and just trials in general. And once you've done it, you'll realize that if you've done like veteran DLC dungeons, you've probably done something that's harder. You could probably almost four-man some of the normal Crag Trials. So I would suggest that everyone goes into them. It's a good learning experience, and overall it's just very productive, and I think it's very helpful to like really understand different mechanics. You really get that team aspect down, team composition. You start to learn about trial mechanics, slightly different than dungeon mechanics. It's a great introductory, and I highly encourage you guys to do it. Something you definitely should do. Next up, we've got another hotly contested one, and that is Cyrodiil. And I want to put Cyrodiil in must do. Why? It's the #1 way to get transmute crystals, in my opinion, with the rewards tier. It's a whole type of content that a lot of people will avoid, but its reward structure is great. It's very fun. I think that there's a lot of people that immediately go to Greyhost and get attacked, and they get killed by ball groups. I think this is so boring. I'm just getting killed out here. There's different campaigns, different ways to kind of make sure that you're built for it. Or we talk about that in other videos, but it's something you must do. It's a key pivotal point to the storyline of ESO. It's a key point to a whole reward structure that exists. If you want to get things with AP, the best way to get it is to get the AP yourself. This is another weird one because we just have delves, but every delve also has a sky shard in it. So I want to put them in should do. So the actual achievement from, just finishing the delve is pretty insignificant, but overall the knowledge that every single one is going to have a sky shard and a boss that's going to give you loot that you can sell based on the zone that you're in is pretty good. I'd say this is something you definitely should do, because I think sky shard hunting is something that you should do. I was flipping between can do and should do, so let me know in the comments if you agree with recommending delves to people, or do you generally stick just with public dungeons. Next up, we've got another weird one, and that's DLC trial achieves. We're just going to assume that this is just DLC trials. Should you do DLC trials? Yes. Most of the best gear in the game is in DLC trials. Now you can do normal, you can do veteran. There's perfected gear in, you know, your veterans, and there's non-perfected gear in your normals. However, normal still gives you access to some really cool skins and titles, but you know, veteran gives you access to sometimes better skins, better titles, and sometimes mounts and other crazy rewards. DLC trials are something that you should do. I almost want to bump it up to must do, because I'm going to bump it up to must do, because if I don't, I'm going to get reamed in the comments. I do know that there are people who can play the entirety of the Elder Scrolls Online and never do a DLC trial, and that is totally okay. But if you were saying, you know, I want to get, you know, to the best in slot of this or that, it's going to be something that you must do, in my opinion. But overall, it's not something that I think that if you're not doing right now, or you're planning to do it in the far future, that's okay. It's not something you have to rush to go do, but it is something that you must do if you want to get the best in slot items in the game. Another hotly contested one is housing. You know, part of me wants to put it in must do, but housing is something you should do. Houses are keenly underrated in how much helpfulness they have. You can either A, have the ability to have a free way shrine in whatever town your home is in. You can have storage boxes, bankers, merchants, you know, deconstruction stations, all right next to your door, so you can port into your house for free, utilize those stations, and then boom, you're good. And overall, I think that is highly underrated, and that's why I'm suggesting it to you. Utilize your homes. Even if you just have those little free inns, utilize them. This next one is a bit controversial, and that is the Imperial City Sewers. I'm going to put it in can do. I think if Telvar wasn't as profitable, it would be in boredom, or potentially even in the avoid doing, because Telvar is profitable to sell, it's profitable to farm, but overall it's pretty painful sometimes. You're constantly in this state of, you could be killed by PvE things, PvP things. It's very stressful for a lot of people to go to the Imperial City Sewers. The rewards just make it worth doing, in my opinion, to really, you know, say that it's even worth doing at all. So that's why it's going to be in the can do category for me. I do enjoy the Imperial City Sewers. I just wish the rewards were a little bit better, and it was a little bit more diverse in the activities that you did, because just killing everything there, because 99% of the time there's really not like mobs of people for you to fight. It just boils down to you killing the same bosses on repeat, and that could be a little bit repetitive. This next one is very hard to read, but it says normal arenas, and I want to put normal arenas in should do. With the changes to Vatestrand, Maelstrom, arenas in general, now that you can actually get the arena weapon from normal content, it's something you should do. There's a lot of really good arena weapons. We don't spend a lot of time chit-chatting about it, because it's just something you should do. Normal base game dungeons is something that, in my opinion, you must do, because there's a lot of good gear sets, there's a lot of good content, a lot of good, you know, you could farm, you know, your normal daily dungeon and get a lot of good transmutes. It's something that you must do as an ESO player, and you probably almost 99% of the time will do. So that's what I would say, is it's definitely something that you must do throughout your time period while playing ESO. This next one's weird because it's normal Crag Trials, so I guess achievements is actually technically separate. So we're going to put the achievements down in boredom, and we're going to kind of keep our thoughts with Crag Trials the same, because I mean it kind of is the same. And then normal DLC dungeons is going to go right up top with the normal base game dungeons, because in my opinion it's worth doing. Now this isn't in any particular order, where usually I try to keep them in some semblance of an order, but these are so relative that we're not going to necessarily do that. And then normal DLC trials is also going to go up there, because it's just something that at some point you should do it, and you must do it, in my opinion, because if you want to get the best gear, you want to get monster sets, you want to farm easy transmutes, you want to get cool titles, achievements, mounts, and things, you know, all of these three things are the ways to get that, and something you must do, in my opinion. World bosses are weird, because there's no necessarily, oh, you know, you get transmutes, or oh, there's a sky shard next to them. So world bosses are a little bit weird, so I'm gonna just put them I'm between in boredom and can do. So generally when I need just stuff to sell, I kill world bosses because they give you good items to sell, like if you're in a decent zone. So I'm gonna put them in boredom. You can farm world bosses. Now if you're in a situation where there's an event going on, where there's boosted rewards for world bosses, this is a different conversation, but generally it's just something to do in boredom. And then we have public dungeons, which is something that in my opinion you should do. I think that I'm gonna actually bump this up to must do. And why? So not only do you have a little picture of a sky shard here, which is essential, but every single one has a boss that will give you a skill point. A lot of people don't know that, and every time I suggest it to people, it's something that I say, you got to do this. You got to go out and get that skill point, get that sky shard. If you're farming, if you think world bosses are an easy way to fill up your inventory to sell, go into a public dungeon and you will be immediately filled with a whole bunch of goodies that you can sell, and they're overall great to do. Highly suggest public dungeons, and it's going to go up to the must do tier. This next one is vet arenas, which I'm going to put in the can do category. Some of you would put in the should do category, but most of the arena weapons I've noticed are not as popular as they were. And if you're in a situation where something is suggesting an arena, you can just farm it on normal and get the weapon still. So that's where, to me, it falls down into the can do category. But I will admit that, it's fun, it's rewarding, but it's not something you necessarily should do. It's just something you can do. And I've farmed a lot of perfected arena weapons, and I use almost none of them. Veteran base game dungeons is going to go right up alongside all these other types of content, because that's how you're going to get your monster set, is by doing them on veteran. I think that it's overall fun to do. I almost now think I need to reevaluate if I want to keep the normal DLC dungeons up here, because you don't technically get a monster set from doing those. I feel like I almost overhyped them a little bit, but some of the best sets in the game are dungeon sets, and you don't need to farm it on veteran every single time. So the normal reasons why you might want to do that is if you're trying to get a purple piece of jewelry already, although now with the jewelry rework you probably won't even have to do that. But overall, veteran base game dungeons are just good to do. Get your stuff, your monster sets, and it's rewarding. That's how I would do them. Pretty much every dungeon content, trials content, is just something that I would definitely suggest. The reason why I have normal Crag Trials down low and I'm not considering moving it up is because the rewards aren't good. You're really just going to learn the mechanics, but a lot of people will just go straight into a normal DLC trial to do that. That's why it's something that you must do versus Crag Trials down here. And then Vet Crag Trials is something that you can do. So why am I not putting this higher? Well, the only reason that generally people even do veteran Crag Trials is to get jewelry to deconstruct, which is going to be significantly less profitable now versus what it was. So take that with a grain of salt. And it's not necessarily any harder than normal DLC trials, like veteran Crag Trials, some of which are probably actually easier than some of the normal DLC trials. Maybe that's a hot take. That's probably too controversial, but overall, it's not something I would say, oh yeah, once you've done the normal Crag Trials, go out and do, the veteran ones. No, I would say no, now go do a DLC trial would be my next step for you. DLC dungeon achievements is something that you can do. I think that there's a lot of really cool skins, titles, personalities, all the stuff that you can get, and overall definitely worth doing if you're interested in that. But it's not something you have to do. It's not necessarily something that you should do, because there's a lot of them that are hard as shit to get and that will make you want to rip your hair out. So that's why it's not going to go up in the should do category, because if somebody's not interested in those types of cosmetics, it's not something I would suggest to them and say you should do this. It's just something I'd go, yeah, you can do that. Veteran DLC dungeons is going to go right up top for all the same reasons we've talked about all the other things up here. It's how you get your veteran DLC monster masks. Something you got to do if you want to get that. And overall, it goes right up there. And veteran DLC trials, I'm going to put them slightly below. I'm going to put them down just in the should do category, because I think that the perfected gear doesn't make a big enough difference. I know that's a hotly contested thing. People think the perfected should give this better reward for wearing it. It's just something you should do. I know a lot of people don't care about perfected gear and they don't care about doing the veteran version of it. So that's where it doesn't go into the must-do category. Plus, there's so many players that are never going to do a veteran trial, either because they don't have ESO Plus, because they don't feel confident, because they prefer solo content. So it's hard for me to push it up into the must-do category, whereas at least with a lot of the normal trials, I'd say it's much more painless, and with the new grouping system, it'd be really easy to go do, and I would say, yes, you must do that. But for DLC trials, it's just going to go in the should-do category. And world events is another interesting one. So generally, whenever there is a really juicy, spicy event, world events usually get a big bonus to them, get a big buff. And some of the most profitable things you can do in the game are considered world events, you know, such as killing dragons, which is probably why they picked this photo. So it's interesting because I would say in those situations you should do them, but in most situations it's something you can do. Like if you were to farm world events right now, it would just be kind of a basic, you know, hey, you know, let's go kill a Harrow Storm. You would get decent rewards for it, something you can do. I'd say it's still above in boredom, but during events, I'd say it's definitely something you should do. So zone quests, it's interesting that they pick zone quest and then they put a picture of the main story quest on there. So zone quests are okay. And they're getting revamped in update 40 because they've notoriously been like in the avoid doing category because they've been hot garbage. Why? Because they're a time sink and they don't even give you the skill points. Oh, you want a skill point? Go to a public dungeon up here. Oh, you want a good storyline? Oh, you can do that down here. That's where it kind of goes into the in boredom category. But with the update and update 40, it's going to be, I would say, probably in the can do category because they're going to give significantly higher gold and XP rewards for doing so, which I think will be good because previously it's just not been good. So that's why it's down here, and it really was flirting with the in boredom category and almost the avoid doing category, because if you're a brand new player and you're just doing the zone story quest, you might feel like you're not getting anywhere. You're not getting gear that you need. You're not getting any, you know, not getting a lot of experience, not getting a lot of gold. You know, it might almost be something that we used to say, don't do it. But I think with some of the changes and even more changes coming, I'm going to put it in can do, higher than your arena achievements, your Crag Trial achievements, and your world bosses, in my opinion. But I'm fully expecting somebody to tell me that I'm crazy, and that's totally okay. Now's the part where you tell me where I'm wrong. What would you change on this tier list? What goes up? What goes down? Would you change it all? What am I right on? Feel free to tell me that I'm right, because sometimes it's just nice to hear that. But I want to thank you guys again for watching. We are doing our 3 giveaway drawings. All you have to do to enter is leave a like on the video. Make sure that you are subscribed and listen for a random word to be flashed upon the screen throughout the month. If you're the first person to comment the word, you will win. Thank you guys so much again, and I'll catch you later. Bye, guys.
You better remember to like and subscribe to Jake Clips. Or you should. I might have to pluck your eyes if you don't. Or, better yet, I'll skip rope with your entrails. Do it now. Subscribe. Ta-ta. Off with you.
So after we've done our tier listing, you know, journey here, I think the next thing that we're going to try to do is find one for the DLC dungeons, or rethinking, would you guys prefer a dungeon tier list? Would you guys prefer a chapter tier list? You know, from the perspective of somebody who's, you know, being recommended, like, hey, you know, go out and do this. Like, what would be something tier list wise that would interest you? And that way I can incorporate it into the next video. But if you're interested in the tier list and stuff that we did yesterday, check out that video up there.